is over and we hope everyone has had a good time. I know I have. How about you, Edwin?
I also had a great time way into the night with our hard-working participants, so sleeping wasn't my primary concern. You know, Christmas is every year, but Junction happens only once a year, so why not enjoy it to the max? Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed the accommodation and food and now have their batteries charged for day 2.
There's still one more night to go, but we are now checking the current situation of the event.
Based on yesterday's draft submissions, you guys are currently working on more than 220 projects. Wow.
The most popular challenges at the moment are keep calm and don't panic, better cities delivered and unleashed, geospatial analysis.
And the challenges looking for more submissions are the road towards society 2.0, work remotely with Huawei, fair and ethical data business, crypto trading helper, making industrial purchase decisions more transparent and sustainable. And remember that the preliminary draft submissions are not binding and you can still change the challenge to better your odds at becoming a winner. Remember to check all the challenge-specific prizes on Junction app or Junction 2022 webpage.
And next, we have something really exciting that most of you have been waiting for. As you might already know, we have an honored guest speaker joining us today on stage. Everyone, warmly welcome Mikko Hyppönen from WithSecure.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you for joining us today, and thank you for being part of Junction. My name is Mikko, and I've worked with computers all my life. I started coding when I was 14. I sold my first software project when I was 17. And since 1991, for the last 31 years, I've been working for the largest security company in Finland, a company which used to be called Data Fellows, then F-Secure, and this year split into 2 different companies, F-Secure and WithSecure. And when I was your age, here in Finland, a country of 5.5 million people, during every year, we had roughly 120 bank robberies in this country. Roughly 2 times a week, every week throughout the year, somewhere in Finland, a robber walked into a bank with a gun to steal cash. The last time we had a bank robbery like that here in Finland was 12 years ago. Bank robberies are no longer a thing. They are no longer a problem. Why? Well, you know why. We have no more banks left. The few physical banks we have, well, they have no cash. So bank robbers, over the last 30 years, did the same thing everyone else did, that all organizations, all professionals did. They went online. They went digital. Today's bank robbers don't use guns. They don't walk into banks. They use banking trojans to insert extra transactions into online banking sessions. They use keyloggers to steal credit card numbers as we are doing online shopping. They break into cryptocurrency systems to try to steal Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Monero, or Zcash. Or they use business email compromise scams to try to make companies reroute their payments to wrong accounts. They've gone digital. And the big difference here between the bank robbers of 1992 and the bank robbers of 2022 is that we've gone from local to global. The one thing that the internet revolution did to all of us is that it deleted geography. Internet deletes geography. Distance no longer matters. Geography no longer matters. Borders no longer matter. You see, the bank robbers 30 years ago, They were robbing their own bank. They woke up Monday morning in their hometown with a headache and no cash, so they took a gun and went into the local bank to steal money. They were within the 10-mile radius from the bank which they were robbing. And today's online criminals are from anywhere on the planet. Because geography has been deleted. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you are. We here, living in safe, almost crime-free societies here in the Nordics, when we go online, we're no longer in Finland or in the Nordics. We're as close to all the online criminals as any other victim anywhere on the planet. And that changes our life, our world, much more than it does in many other countries where crime and corruption is much more normal. So this revolution, where everything goes online and where geography gets deleted, changes the lives of us living in safe societies more than in many other parts of the world. And this is easy to say, but it's hard to really understand how much it changes the risks we face. Having said that, it's also clear that this technology revolution where we are living right now is bringing us much more good than bad. I've lived all my life hunting criminal hackers, looking at the worst downsides that this revolution brings to us, hunting criminals, scrounging the dark web to find clues, seeing the worst that the mankind has to offer, seeing the worst things that this revolution has brought to us. And despite of that, I'm an optimist. I believe we are making progress. I believe the future is bright. I love the internet. And I think we've only seen the beginning of this revolution. And this revolution is going to be great. There are downsides. There are new types of crime, new types of risks. But the upsides are much, much bigger than the downsides. And I've been securing computers all my life. I've been a computer security guy all my life. And I used to get it all wrong. I used to think that I'm a computer security guy, so my job is to secure computers. I'm a computer security guy, I secure computers. Well, for years and years, that was fairly accurate. The problem is that today, computers look like this. That's a computer. That's a computer. Our whole society is being run by computers. Everything that we plug into the electricity grid, we are slowly but surely plugging into the online grid as well. If it uses electricity, it will be online. If it uses electricity, it will be online. Whether it's a good idea or not, it will be online. Everything is going online, everything is becoming smart, and as everything becomes smart, it also becomes vulnerable. The example I almost always use to illustrate this is my watch. Here's my watch. It's an Omega. I got this 21 years ago after 10 years of service with the company. The reason why it's an Omega is that in 1991, when I did my very first virus analysis, I reverse engineered an MS-DOS virus infecting COM files spreading on the PCs of the time. I named the virus, because the Finder names the virus. And that this particular virus displayed the Omega sign on the screen when it started deleting users' files. So I named the virus Omega. And then we later, years later, started this tradition that you get a watch when you've been 10 years with the company. So I got an Omega. And I know what you're thinking. I should have named the virus Ferrari. But this watch is mechanical. It's not a smartwatch. It has no CPU, it has no connectivity, it runs no code. How do you hack this watch? Well, you don't. because there's nothing to hack. It's unhackable. Then you look at smartwatches. We're carrying Android watches or Apple watches or Suuntos or Garmins here in this room. Some of them are very, very safe. Are they unhackable? No. Because they are computers. They run code. That code is written by people like us, and people make mistakes. When coders make mistakes, we end up with bugs. And when we have bugs in interconnected systems, those bugs awfully easily become vulnerabilities. Some of those vulnerabilities can be exploited remotely, making these things vulnerable. If it's smart, it's vulnerable. That's also the title of my book, which came out in English now 2 months ago. If it's smart, it's vulnerable. Some people call it the Hyppönen law. And yes, it is a very pessimistic law. Very pessimistic law, but it's also true. When we add functionality and connectivity into everyday devices, they do become vulnerable. So the job of us computer security guys has changed. It's changed from securing computers into securing washing machines. Actually, it has changed into securing the whole society. Because our society runs on computers. It's running on computers already. It will be running on computers more every day. And I represent the last generation in mankind's history who remembers the time before the internet. You represent the first generation in mankind's history who doesn't remember the time before the internet. Because that's planet Earth. It's a nice photo taken by NASA from the moon. That's where we all live. The mankind has walked on this planet for 100,000 years offline. We went online right now, during our time, between our generations. And now we will be online forever. We've been offline all this time. We went online right now, and we will be online forever. You and me, we just happen to be born during this cross-section of time. And technology is right now changing the world more and faster than ever before. And that also means that we are becoming reliant on these new technologies. The last time we had a revolution which we could compare to this revolution was 150 years ago. In 1870, the city of Helsinki laid its first electricity grid, because in 1870 Helsinki started replacing the gas lights around the streets of Helsinki with electric lights. We built, well, not we, but our great-grandfathers built the first electric grid. Around the same time, the same things started happening in all capitals around the world. Electricity, especially the electric grid, has been around 150 years on this planet. And during those 150 years, we've become completely reliant on electricity. If electricity goes down, everything goes down. We can't function as a society without electricity. And that's pretty scary. It's pretty sad how reliant we are. Yet it's obvious that our great-grandfathers made the right choice. They made the right choice 150 years ago by embracing electricity, because the upsides we all have been receiving from electricity during these decades have been massive. And the fact that we are now so reliant on it, it is a problem, but it's a much smaller problem. And we, you and me, we are right now making exactly the same decision for future generations. Connectivity is not yet mandatory for our society. Today, if electricity goes down, society shuts down. If internet goes down, society still works today. If internet goes down, it's very painful, very expensive, very uncomfortable, but we would continue living. The factories would continue running. Cars would be going on the streets. Planes would be flying without internet today in 2022. But in 20 years, in 30 years, they won't. We are making exactly the same kind of decision for all future generations that our great-grandfathers did for us. When they embraced electricity, we are now embracing connectivity. And just like they made the right choice by embracing electricity, we are making the right choice by embracing connectivity. What we should understand the responsibility we have, because we are making this choice which will make connectivity mandatory for all future generations, for your children. That's the choice we are making right now. And the upsides are much bigger than the downsides, but the downsides are very real. This is the website for the Klopp unicorn cybercrime gang operating from Moscow, Russia. It's a website in the dark web, in the Tor hidden service system, under a Junction URL. It's the website where this cybercrime gang posts the names of the companies they've hacked. Companies that this group has broken into and which they have attacked with their ransomware. Ransomware which then steals emails and documents from these companies and encrypts the files in their local servers, after which a gang like this can demand a payment in cryptocurrencies as a ransom. And if the company pays the ransom, they get their files back, and their files will not be leaked from this website. That's how they can twist the arm of their victims. I call these gangs nowadays cybercrime unicorns because it's a good example on just how powerful and wealthy the biggest gangs have become. Gangs like Klopp or Lockbit or Alpha or Quantum or RansomX, they're all cybercrime unicorns. And they operate like companies. They have employees, they pay monthly salaries, they have their own professional data centers, they have their own HR teams, they have their own lawyers, they have their own business analysts. Now, why would a ransomware gang need a business analyst? Well, they have to be able to estimate what's the right amount of money we should be demanding from this victim company. So the first thing they do when they hit their network is that they steal the financial information and the bookkeeping information from the victim. Then they give it to their own business analyst, which goes through the figures. How much money does this company have? How much cash? How many short-term loans? How many shares do they own which they could sell immediately? How much money could this organization pay to us right now? And then they start the negotiations for the ransom amount, which completely changes the situation. Because even the companies which decide to pay the ransom always try to hackle down how much they should be paying. So they would be claiming that we can't pay this ransom you're demanding, and of course the gang could respond that actually you can pay exactly this amount. We know because we've looked through your financials. When these gangs become more powerful and more wealthy, they're able to do the kinds of attacks we haven't seen before. Right now, the thing we are mostly worried about regarding the capabilities of cybercrime unicorns is not that they have enough money to go and buy Ferraris and drive around. This is Mr. Maxim Boyko, one of the Russian cybercrime criminals who's accused for laundering money for these cybercrime gangs. We're not worried about this. We're worried about the fact that they are closer and closer into being able to recruit professionals to do things like using automation and machine learning for their attacks, which is something we haven't actually seen. People are often surprised because they think that online criminals are already using AI and all these things. there might be some very narrow examples, but by and large, that's not happening yet. And we will very soon be seeing cases where cybercrime gangs automate their operations, automate things like automatically rewrite their malware when it gets detected by security products, or when their malicious websites are blocked and blacklisted, they have automation which recreates the websites, registers new domain names, creates new content. Or when their malicious emails or links are blocked, automation will rewrite the emails, recreate the links. This is something we are not yet seeing, but we will be seeing in the near future. And that means that since security companies are already heavily using machine learning and AI to defend, when the attackers take that step, which they will be taking very soon, then we will see which one will win when we have bad AI against good AI. The only thing we know right now is that the only thing which really can fight against bad AI will be good AI. And future belongs to the computers. The last time we had as big a revolution as artificial intelligence was when we invented artificial power. Artificial power, which replaced our muscles. Again, for 100,000 years, the only power we had was our own muscles. Then 300 years ago, we invented steam engine and then electrical engine. And the innovation of artificial power made a lot of people really unhappy. Why? Because they were unemployed. Machines replaced them. Their muscles were no longer needed to carry things around the construction yard. And that's what's happening now with artificial intelligence. Machine learning is taking away creative jobs. Machines are becoming better in the kind of jobs we thought only we could do. They are becoming better in art, in composing music, in writing poems, in writing lyrics, in writing code. And I hate it as much as you do. Just the idea that machines would be better in writing poems than humans sounds crazy, but I do think it's going to happen. And when I say better poems, I really do mean poems that we all would agree are better than poems written by humans. Poems which are more deeper, have more meaning, have more emotion than the best poems written by humans. That's what I mean. And this sucks. But it doesn't matter that I think it sucks. It's going to happen anyway. And the revolution we will be seeing there will be painful, just like the revolution of artificial power was painful. So what did the people who were unemployed by artificial power do? Well, they went on to do things that machines couldn't do. Overall, I think we would all agree that the people who were unemployed by artificial power went on to do more productive things, and overall it was a good revolution for the mankind. And I hope, I wish, that the revolution of machine learning and artificial intelligence will do the same. But that's just a hope. It's just a wish. We don't really know yet. And one revolution which is underway in the world of security right now is making us more secure than ever before. So what's this? Well, that's an Xbox. That's a gaming console. What's the operating system inside Xbox? Well, Xbox is made by Microsoft. This runs Windows. Funnily enough, you never hear about malware or viruses or worms or hacks on Xboxes, even though it runs Windows. Obviously, it's a computer. It has a CPU, it has memory, it runs code, it's online, it has storage. It runs Windows. But there's no malware. Why? Because it's closed. It's a closed ecosystem, closed environment. It's a computer that you own, but you don't have the right to program it. We get better security with closed environments like these. Now, we don't do much computing on an Xbox, but this is exactly the same architecture that we have on our phones, or on our tablets, or on our Chromebooks. And this is one of the big revolutions happening right now. We are giving the users who don't need to be able to write code on their computer, which is most of the users, machines which cannot be used to write code, which would run on that computer. And that is a trade-off. It's a much, much more limited environment, but it's also a much more secure environment. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking that that's not actually true because there's all these headlines regularly about how, for example, iPhones get hacked with tools like Pegasus. And that's true. Of course, anything is hackable. iPhones are hackable, like this headline right here tells us. However, the difference is Pegasus is a commercial hacking tool sold to governments, to law enforcement, and to intelligence agencies, and the price for hacking an iPhone with this tool is 100,000 euros. That's how much it costs. Which means your iPhone will not be hacked because you're not worth 100,000 euros. That's how secure these systems are. Your MacBook and your Windows computer will be hacked because it costs $5 to hack that. But your phone won't. That's how big the difference right now is when we compare the security level of these closed environments and these open environments. So it is a trade-off. When you go towards more closed environments, you're giving away rights. You don't have the right to program your own device, but you do get better security. The same thing applies to almost anything in security. It's almost always a trade-off. So what's the future going to look like? Well, this here, the thing that we all have in our pockets, the processing power this has, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, this would have been a supercomputer. The same computing power that's in every pocket here, 20 years ago, this would have been the fastest supercomputer on the planet. The computers which had comparable speed 20 years ago were the size of a small car, and they were water-cooled, and they had their own power generator. They were used for long-term weather forecasts and for decoding the human DNA. Now, we all have this in our pockets. This can do long-term weather forecast and decode the human DNA, and this doesn't require water cooling, and it doesn't require a separate power generator. No, this one runs on a battery, and it's cheap enough that anybody can get one. This is what happened in 20 years. What's going to happen in the next 20 or in the next 50? Well, we're going towards limitless computing. Computing power gets cheaper and cheaper. Storage gets cheaper and cheaper. Bandwidth gets cheaper and cheaper until it's effectively free. So I envision a future where we all have access to limitless computing for free. Access to limitless computing for free. And now you shouldn't take me literally. I mean very close to limitless and very close to free. You could imagine that someone would give you the biggest possible Amazon AWS instance with unlimited storage and bandwidth and RAM and CPU power, and you would pay $0.01 a month, something like that. And that's a pretty liberating thought, isn't it? Because it changes the question to what would you build if there would be no limits? What would you build if there would be no limits? And that's the thought I want to leave you with. Think about the future and the choices you'll be making when you have no limits, because that is the future we are going towards for. And the upsides of these revolutions are much bigger than the downsides. The downsides are very real and they are a bit scary, but we are making the right choice, you and me. We are making the right choice by embracing connectivity and by embracing the biggest technology revolution that mankind has ever seen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being at Junction. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikko.
Thank you.
Now, we still have time for some audience questions by scanning the QR code that we have in here. Do we have it someplace? Shown on the screen here. You will be taken to a platform where you can anonymously ask questions, and then we have these technology thingies here where you can we can pick the questions to ask. But yeah, maybe we can start with one simple question. So here, what are the most common issues you see in the corporate security approach?
Sorry, I missed the question.
So
the most common problems I see.
Now it disappeared from my screen here.
Just rephrase it. I missed the word you said.
So what are the most common issues you can see in a corporate security approach?
Corporate, that's the word I missed. Thank you. Yeah, now I spoke a lot about ransomware. Ransomware has been the single biggest problem for the last 8 years. What happened 8 years ago? Ransomware gangs started using cryptocurrencies to collect the ransomware payments, which completely changed the rate of these crimes. We had ransomware as a problem already before that, but they were then collecting the ransom payments through virtual credit cards or voucher payment systems, which made it fairly easy to catch the criminals. But ransomware is not the only problem. The second largest problem, money-wise, is BEC, business email compromise. These are the kinds of attacks where the attackers break into corporate email services, typically Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Then they spend extended time reading the emails, learning how does this organization move money. Like, where do the invoices come in, who approves the invoices, who pays the invoices, and how. And then they start misusing their access to the email system by sending emails in the middle of these execution flows. So for example, the CFO sends a bill to be paid, 30 seconds later he or she sends another email, sorry, that was the wrong PDF, here's the right one. And the second email is not sent by the CFO, but it does come from the same address, and the PDF is the same PDF, it just has the account number changed. And as you can easily see, tricks like these work very well unless the employees have been trained and educated to fight these. And then the third largest problem faced by corporations today are denial of service attacks, especially denial of service attacks which are done to shut down online stores, and they're done again for ransom reasons. An attack takes down the online store, keeps it down for 24 hours, then the management gets an email from the attackers saying that, yeah, we took down your store, we'll keep it down for the next week unless you pay us a ransom. And especially for organizations which do all of their sales online, this is very painful, and we often see them folding in these situations. Denial of service attacks are problematic, and interestingly enough, the biggest denial of service botnets today are not created by infecting computers. They are created by infecting IoT devices. I'll give one example of that. During the Ukraine war, during this year, we've seen attacks against government websites here in Finland, including the House of Parliament and the Defense Ministry. Those denial of service botnets were built from printers, home routers, doorbells, smart security cameras. There wasn't a single computer, like a laptop or a desktop, in those botnets. It was all IoT. That's how the attackers today built the power they use to create these artificial traffic jams on the internet.
Super interesting.
Yes. The next? Well, you can ask.
Well, let's see what's wrong with the mic. But it's so the next question is, it's often said that there is a shortage of security professionals. What should be done to encourage more of us to join the ranks?
It is true, there's a big lack of security people, and security is a very wide range of different skill sets. All the way from people doing security consulting, to doing penetration testing, to doing incident management, to malware analysis, to what have you. So we need different kinds of people. For example, my boss at the company doesn't have a degree in computer science. He has a degree in psychology. That's how wide the range of skills we need is in security. So what are universities and security companies doing about this? Well, for example, we run our own training system for bringing in people with no skills. We train them from the ground up, then we hire them. We also work with universities around the world, including Aalto, Helsinki University, and for example, the Technical University of Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, which is where we have our Asian headquarters. But we don't only have a shortage of cybersecurity people. As I mentioned, a big part of our work is being done by automation and machine learning. So there's a big lack of machine learning people, and especially a lack of the combination, trying to find people who are experts in both computer security and in machine learning at the same time. That's where the biggest shortage is right now.
Awesome. Is it working now? Let's see.
I think, yes.
Yes.
So someone from the audience asked, what are your thoughts on quantum computing and how they will impact asymmetric encryption?
Quantum computing is one of those revolutions we will be facing. As some of you know, there's a quantum computer factory less than a kilometer from here, a company called IQM. I actually visited them 2 months ago or so. I've touched a quantum computer, which was pretty cool, literally cool, because it's minus 273. Nevertheless, the revolution that they will bring us is, once again, the best thing and the worst thing at the same time. We get massive jump in computing capability, but many of the existing security systems we've built will fail. So what's the solution? Well, the solution isn't really that crazy. We have already developed quantum-safe encryption algorithms. We simply should take them into mainstream usage. Quantum-safe encryption is a thing. It has been a thing already for 15 years. However, taking it into everyday use is a huge project. Right now, every time you use SSL, that means every time you go to a website with HTTPS in the address, your browser and the server are using quantum weak algorithms, which means someone somewhere could be collecting all that information today. They couldn't read it today, but let's say in 5 years, when we have enough qubits in quantum computers, an intelligence agency somewhere could go back and read everything you said over HTTPS right now, simply by saving the information. And that's a bit scary. But it's also easy to see why it's such a big project. We would have to change or modify every single browser, on every single computer, on every single mobile phone, and every single web server, and then everything else, not just web traffic, which we encrypt with similar algorithms. It is a huge undertaking, but it's not becoming smaller by delaying it. We should be doing it already. And I'll give one example of mechanisms we use which are quantum safe already. Now, I don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but if I ever meet him, I'll buy him a drink. And one thing which is amazing is that already in 2009, the original Bitcoin white paper, the hashing algorithms and the encryption system designed by Satoshi Nakamoto is already quantum safe. If you simply use a new address for every Bitcoin transaction, it's a quantum safe system, and that's more than 10 years old. So we do have these technologies. We should simply take them into use. And when that is done, then the quantum leap will only have upsides.
Yeah, that's endlessly interesting to talk about quantum computing. So one more question. So what can be done about the increased cyber activity of state actors?
Yep, it's very true that offensive cyber power is more and more being used by governments. Governments do various different things with offensive cyber power. By far, the most common thing they do is espionage. Espionage and spying. The example of Pegasus running on the iPhone of the Prime Minister of Spain is an example of that. We don't know which intelligence agency was using that tool, but we know it was an intelligence agency of some country. The work of spies has changed. When you look at James Bond movies, you think about a real-world spy who goes somewhere to steal information, because information used to be somewhere. You had to go to the information to steal papers or photograph plans. Today, of course, information is data, which means you don't have to go anywhere. You can reach the information online. And that's why the work of spies has expanded from the real world to the online world. Now, in addition of espionage, governments also use offensive cyber power for sabotage. The best known example of that is case Stuxnet, which was an offensive cyber attack launched by the government of the United States and Israel to target the nuclear enrichment systems of Iran. And that was a successful sabotage attack. Estimates say that they delayed the enrichment process of Iran by maybe 2 years with these cyber attacks. So was that war? No. Because there was no war between United States and Israel and Iran when these attacks were done. However, if there would have been a war, the very same attack would have been cyber war. So the difference between cyber sabotage and cyber war really isn't technical. The difference is whether there's a war going on or not. So what we're seeing right now in Ukraine, when we're seeing Russia's FSB or GRU attacking Ukrainian infrastructure with cyber attacks, that is cyber war, because there is a war. When two countries are at war and they're launching cyber attacks against the critical infrastructure in the other country, what else could we call it than cyber war? So cyber war is very real, but most of the attacks we see done by governments are espionage or sabotage. And when sabotage happens during wartime, then it's cyber war.
Awesome. Well, maybe a couple more questions since we have a little bit of time.
Yes.
So can we maybe move forward?
Yes, so someone from the audience asked, which is better field to focus on my studies on, information security or machine learning?
Oh, you should really definitely do both. So maybe do your bachelor's in one and your master's in the other. That's really easy to say, and I know it's not that easy to do in practice. I don't think you can go wrong between these two, so choose the one that's more interesting to you. And overall, my guidance for what you should be studying or what you should be doing with your careers is aim for something that is interesting to you. Pick a niche that you like, as narrow niche as you can imagine, then go all in that niche. Try to be one of the very best in that niche area. And here the trick really is that it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a general expert. If you're one of the best in your country, one of the best in the world in something, you will always have a great paying job. You will always be wanted. And the niche can be very narrow. You could be the best in the world in figuring out the access rights for Red Forest access in Microsoft 365 environment in Azure, which is a very narrow niche. But if you're one of the best, someone will always want to hire you to do that thing. So pick something that you're interested in and then go all in that.
Great advice. The next question is, how dangerous is AI for human civilization?
Well, it seems a pretty obvious mistake to introduce a superior intelligence into our own biosphere. But that's exactly what we're doing. This is our own biosphere. Right now we are the smartest ones on the planet, and now we are introducing a smarter one. However, I don't really believe in these Terminator 2 movie plot threats. I think if we are able to create a superior intelligence, especially a superior general intelligence, which might be unlikely, but even if we would, I think that superior intelligence would largely ignore us. A superior intelligence wouldn't really care about us and what we do. It wouldn't need us for anything. It's sort of like how we would think about animals. Like, sure, there's lots of hedgehogs here in Otaniemi, and nice, we don't really care about what they do. Of course, we could kill all the hedgehogs if we wanted to, but we don't want to. They don't really do anything for us. I think that's the way it would play out. At least that's the way I hope it would play out. And if it doesn't play out like that, if it becomes a horror movie scenario, then never mind what I said.
That's super interesting. Someone asked, so how can we help the general population understand their security flaws? Not just like our generation, but our parents, grandparents, and so on.
Sure. Well, the first thing I would tell to anybody is that security is actually getting better, not worse. Because the overall attitude we, in general, seem to have is that security is horrible and we're only seeing failure after failure after failure. That's actually not true. Security has never been better than it is today. And I know it doesn't look like that. The reason why it doesn't look like that is that we only see the failures. Now, I already pinpointed one of the success stories, which is these more limited devices, which has become the most common computer on the planet. Mobile phones are the most common computer that we use, and these are far more secure than any of the traditional computers that we used to use. That's one example on how the situation is getting better. Another example is that whenever we read the news, we always see the horror stories about how yet another company was hacked, how there was yet another data leak, yet another data breach. That's because when security works, it creates no headlines. I can guarantee to you that the Helsingin Sanomat newspaper tomorrow will not have a headline which says that the second largest company in Finland was not hacked yesterday. That's not news. When a company doesn't get hacked, that's not news. When they do get hacked, that is news, which means we only see the downsides. And I've used the term cybersecurity Tetris to illustrate this, because we all know the rules of Tetris. In Tetris, you're trying to build a whole line. Actually, you're trying to build 4 whole lines at the same time. That's a Tetris. And what happens when you complete a whole line in the game of Tetris? The line disappears. So your successes disappear while your failures pile up. Everybody can see your failures, but they can't see your successes. And that's what we're doing in security as well.
Awesome. Well, you've talked about a lot of vulnerability, that a lot of devices are vulnerable for attacks. So since everything is now so smart, shouldn't device producers move towards off-the-grid alternatives for more secure-oriented consumers? And why aren't they doing that?
Well, of course they should, but they won't. I'm certainly worried about the security of smart devices. I'm even more worried about the security of stupid devices. So what's the difference here? Smart devices are the devices that we buy knowing that it will be online. So you buy a security camera, and of course today a security camera is a smart security camera. You can watch it from your phone. That's nice, that's functional, that's good for you. You buy a smart fridge. Why? Because when you're shopping and you don't remember if there's milk in the fridge, you can look at inside the fridge from your phone, and it has a camera so you know if there's milk in the fridge or not. These are smart devices. The user, the consumer knows it's online. The consumer wants it to be online. But then we have stupid devices. Let's say a kitchen mixer, the thing you use to beat up your eggs. You don't need an app. You don't want an app for your kitchen mixer, right? What I'm saying is that even kitchen mixers will be online. Why? Because the vendors who build kitchen mixers, they know that data is money, or data is oil, or data is whatever, it's valuable. They want to collect data. For example, they want to know where their customers are. How many customers for our kitchen mixers do we have in Finland? How many in Tampere, how many in Oulu, how many in Turku, how many in Espoo? Do we have more customers in Espoon Keskusta, or in Tapiola, or in Otaniemi? We don't have very many customers in Tapiola. Should we advertise more in Tapiola area? This is valuable information. The only way they can collect that information is by taking their kitchen mixers online. So why aren't they online already now in 2022? Because the price for the IoT chipsets, which you can buy today from manufacturers, is around 2 euros. 2 euros for the chip, for the connectivity, and for the connectivity kit. And the price of a kitchen mixer is 10 euros, so they can't add a 2 euro chip for no purpose that the consumer would know. But what's going to happen in 5 years? What's the price of that chip in 5 years? It's going to be 2 cents or half a cent. Then it will happen. And that means we're going towards a future where everything will be online, and you won't even know that they are online. Everything will be online. Some of them will be online to give benefits to us consumers. Some of them will be online to give benefits to manufacturers, and you won't be able to prevent them from going online. You don't even know it's online. Even if you know it's going to go online, you can't block it at your Wi-Fi. It's not going to be using your Wi-Fi. It's going to be using Sigfox or Zigbee or 6G to go online. We cannot prevent this revolution, even if we don't like it. It's going to happen whether we like it or not.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome? You think it's awesome?
An awesome
Your answer was
Yes.
awesome.
Thank you.
So, what do you think is the biggest issue? The lack of cybersecurity education within a company, or cyber crimes getting more advanced by the day?
When we drill down any data breach, any malware outbreak, any data leak, when we drill down and find the root cause, it's always the same. There's always two different choices. It's either a technical vulnerability or it's human error. Technical vulnerabilities, like I said earlier, they're just bugs in the code. The creator of the system made a mistake. We have a bug in interconnected systems, which then become vulnerabilities. And technical vulnerabilities are slow and hard and expensive and painful to fix, but at least we know how to fix it. We find the bug, we fix the bug, we create a patch, we update all the systems. Slow and expensive, but it's doable. But what about the human error? How do we fix humans doing stupid stuff? Users using the same password everywhere. Users falling for phishing scams. Users clicking on malicious links. Users executing every attachment they get. How do we fix that? Because there's no patch for human brains. There's no patch we could apply here. The only patch we have is education, and that's really painful, really slow, much harder to fix than the technical vulnerabilities. And actually, if we drill down to the technical vulnerabilities deep enough, we realize that even those, in the end, are human errors. Because it is the coders doing human errors which create these vulnerabilities. So what's the final fix for that? Well, once machine learning is smart enough to write code by itself, then all human programmers become unemployed overnight, and all the code will be written by machines. And those machines will be so smart they won't be making bugs, or if they create bugs, they will be so goddamn complex we won't be able to exploit them. And I don't like that future either, and I don't think it's going to happen in a couple of decades, but I think eventually it will happen. And I'm not entirely sure if that's going to create more problems or less problems, but this is the direction where we're headed.
Awesome. Maybe one more question.
Awesome? You think it's awesome?
Now, your just saying your answers are awesome. Where they're
We have to discuss later.
Oh, we'll discuss this later. So you talked about ransomware on a corporate setting a lot. But is ransomware something that private users also should be worried about?
It used to be a much bigger problem for home users. This is where ransomware started. It was initially, a couple of years ago, targeting home users. So what they were typically doing was that they were encrypting your photos or your photo roll, or taking down your time machine backup or your Apple iCloud, and changing the password and requesting you to pay money to get your local files and your passwords and your backups from the cloud back. But it has been evolving towards companies and corporate targets, because there's much more money to be made from the corporate victims. But I'll tell one anecdote about these home ransomware cases. Around 5 years ago, we found a ransomware which was targeting home users, which was called Popcorn. And it was really interesting, because when it demanded a payment from the home user to get their own files, own emails, and own photos back, you could either pay the ransom in Bitcoin, or if you couldn't afford to pay the ransom, you could infect 3 of your friends, and then it would automatically unlock your files. And this was really clever. It's like combining a chain letter and ransomware together. If you can't afford it, just infect your friends. If 3 of your friends get infected by the same Trojan and they pay the ransom, it would automatically unlock your files. And we actually tested this. We infected test systems, and it did really work. So at least they were honest criminals.
Okay, now instead of saying awesome, I'm going to say thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mikko, for coming here today and to enlighten us.
And for those of you in the audience, I have 2 of my books with me. The first ones to come chat with me afterwards gets a copy of my new book.
Definitely check it out.
Awesome. And the rest of you, buy Mikko's book.
Definitely.
So awesome. Thank you so much for coming here. And so let's give a round of applause for Mikko.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you again, Mikko, for your keynote. I hope we all learned something new today and also widened our perspectives.
It was definitely eye-opening. I will be definitely more conscious of the ways I could be hacked from now on.
Yes. But next, we want to remind you guys of the schedule for today. We are continuing the event with partner and pitching workshops at the Hacker Stage. The latter is a prime opportunity to practice and hone your pitching skills for the finale. We also highly encourage you to book mentoring times with partners and have conversation with them at their booths.
And most importantly, lunch will begin to be served at 1 p.m. at TAFFA. And remember to go at the time specified for you in your bracelets. And also to remind you, the final submission deadline is tomorrow at 10 sharp. Now, let's get back to hacking.
We'll be back tomorrow at the closing ceremony. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye.